On to item 6.2. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville granting a waiver from the noise ordinance to the Emery Unified School District for construction work on all Saturdays and Sundays. And again, I want to point out that there's been a revision to this item, that the resolution has now been revised to allow Saturday work only, no Sunday work, and non-noisy interior work only, no exterior work. Charlie.
So we're going from one non-controversial item to another. I'm here to present to you a request for a noise waiver from the Emery Unified School District for the Emeryville Center of Community Life project, the ECCL project, which is, as I'm sure you know, on the west side of San Pablo Avenue between 47th and 53rd Streets and adjacent to Emery Bay Village. The school district requests to do weekend work on the ECCL project, and their request was for all Saturdays and Sundays between November 22nd, that's this coming Saturday, 2014, and June 30th of 2016 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The type of work requested included interior work, which would be paint and finishes and carpentry work and things like that, exterior work such as paint and exterior skin, wood and steel structural work, and site improvements including grading, foundation, and landscaping. The things that would generate noise from this work would include, but not be limited necessarily to, truck deliveries, structural work, power tools, and worker communications. The reason for their request is to ensure that the first new building, there are a number of buildings for the ECCL project, they want to make sure that the first one, which is the high school building, is ready for classes by January 16th of 2016. The high school currently is operating at the Santa Fe School, which is a City of Oakland school, or an Oakland Unified School District school, at 53rd and Adeline Streets, and that costs the school district about $500,000 a year. They'd also like to reduce the overall construction period. As required by the noise ordinance, we notified all property owners and residents within 300 feet of this request, and we also published a notice in the Oakland Tribune, and I know that our notice was received by at least a few people because a number of people have heard about this, and I'm sure a lot of them are here tonight. The standard conditions that we would normally put on a noise waiver include that the work would be limited to the time, location, hours, type of work, and equipment that was described in the request. As Mayor Asher indicated, our recommendation is to modify that somewhat, which I'll get into in a second. That backup beepers be disabled during Saturday and Sunday work, now Saturday only. We would still have that condition. Signs be posted with contact information for concerns or complaints, and that phone must be answered by a live person, not by voicemail or answering machine. The applicant is to notify all neighbors within 300 feet and the Emeryville Police, the Fire Department, and Public Works before starting any weekend work. If complaints are received, the work is to stop until the issue is resolved. And the City Council, as always, may modify or revoke the noise waiver if conditions are not complied with or if complaints are not satisfactorily resolved. We still have all of these conditions in the modified resolution. Our recommendation now is that the council approve the noise waiver to allow weekend work on Saturdays only for the requested period from 9 to 5, that the Saturday work be limited to non-noisy interior finish trades only, which would be drywall, painting, tile, hardware, and similar kinds of things. It should be noted that the school district still has the option to apply to the council on a case-by-case basis in the future for any one-time noise waivers for any necessary exterior work. For example, concrete pours, which sometimes have to be done over a 24-hour period because they can't stop pouring the concrete. Any such requests in the future would be, of course, noticed to all neighbors, as every noise waiver request is. So that concludes my recommendation, or my presentation, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Go ahead.
A quick clarifying question. Since you're talking about interior finish trades, can you give me a roundabout ballpark of when that might be? I don't think that'll be next week.
No, that would be towards the end of the project. As I understand it, it's about an 18-month process, and this would probably be during the last third or so of that, when the building is kind of buttoned up or close to being buttoned up, and they're just working on the inside.
But it's a little confusing because there's a January 16, 2016
Yeah.
date,
so
but this goes through June, so I'm just not quite understanding the.
Well, that's the target for the high school building, but the other buildings would still be under construction after that.
And if I may, John Baker is here from Swinnerton, and he can probably speak specifically to the timing of that. John, if there's any interior work that would be done, if you can, the timing of it.
Thank you.
There are 3 phases to the project. There are the first phase, which will be complete which is scheduled for completion in August of 2015, is the gym renovation. The second phase is the high school. That's scheduled for completion in November 2015. And then the remainder of the project, which includes the K through 12 school, the K through 8 school, the admin building, and the community building, are scheduled for completion in June 2016. So the work is phased. So we would imagine that this work would take place and I want to point out that none of this work is currently scheduled. I'm not planning on doing any Saturday work now. This is only should we need it for some reason. In any case, the interior work would take place in the gym building. It's all interior work, actually. We're doing that interior work now. But the type of work, drywall, painting, tile, hardware, would take place approximately from January of 2015 through July. For the high school, that work would take place from about June of 2015 through November. And for the remainder of the project, that work would take place from about October through May. So it's sequenced because of the 3 phases of the project.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and, any questions for Charlie? Let's go ahead and hear from the public. Anyone want to come forward and speak?
You can line up. I know
Yeah.
a lot of you are here. So.
Hi, I'm Oscar Velasquez. I live in Emeryville Village. I wonder, why do they need a waiver to this if they're not going to make noise? It doesn't make any sense. Or is it because they cannot work right now during the weekends? I live very close to the high school, and I work during the day at home, and I even my house vibrates, and I don't know if they're going to make that kind of work while they're doing this waiver on the weekends. But my concern is that it doesn't make any sense why they're asking for a waiver and they're saying that they're not going to make noises on the weekend. And why do they need a waiver if they're not going to make noise? That's my question.
Thank you.
Okay, now they're saying they're going to be completed with the date for opening the high school is January 2016. We all need to remember the school district promised us the high school is going to be ready in August of 2015. That's when the Center for Community Life was approved. That's when we were going to be ready. So now they pushed it back a whole semester. Why do they do that? Why is there suddenly a big problem with time now? The reason is the school district started building almost a year later than they said they were going to start. So they started late, and now suddenly it's our problem. It's like I don't have a lot of empathy for a group like that. They need to answer. They want a noise waiver. If they expect the neighbors to now give up their weekends, we need to find out why did they start this project a year too late. I've asked them that, and I've never gotten an answer. And I think you guys should ask them that. There needs to be some accounting here. They can't just be this sloppy and this there's sort of an arrogance here, actually, and I just find it sort of kind of reprehensible. Now, the gentleman from Swinnerton, who's representing the district's interests, looking out after the builders at Turner, is essentially saying that this is not to worry here. There's essentially a placeholder, and we only want to reserve the weekends. And he said, should we need it for some reason? Well, if you grant this waiver, there's going to be a reason every weekend. I mean, I'm in the business. I know how this works, and so we shouldn't kid ourselves here. So I think you need to get to the bottom of why the district started their project almost a year late before you just grant pell-mell waivers, noise waivers like this. And remember, we have a noise ordinance for a reason, and I'm sort of tired of seeing the council constantly allowing favored developers, especially like Pixar, allowing them, like Pixar was allowed like a whole year of weekends. And it sort of runs roughshod over the idea of a noise ordinance. So we have it for a reason. There needs to be extenuating circumstances to overturn our waiver. To overturn our noise ordinance. And is it going to cost the district more money if you say this? Yeah, probably. But that's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's not that and if they start laying this on the children, well, I say, that's phooey on them. They started the project late. It's their problem. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I moved to 53rd Street 2 years ago, and there are elderlies that have been owning their homes over 50 years, and they no longer can sit on their front stoop and get sun because of construction. So 2 days of the weekend, because 53rd and the history of this area is big. And it's a community where we barbecue together, we get together, and the construction has made a nuisance of noise, and we understand and are excited about the school. We were more excited when the football field was actually getting in front of us, but there's a point where people have mark and history here that shouldn't be disturbed or bothered. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Velasquez, and I'm at right across the street on San Pablo Avenue, directly across the street from the construction. And I work remotely quite often, and there's quite a bit of noise where I have to leave my house just to get some work done. And if I have to endure that every weekend, that doesn't seem quite right to me. In addition, rightfully said, someone else spoke and said that if they're going to only do interior work, there really doesn't need to be a waiver. I'm happy for them to come in on Saturday and work, but they don't need a waiver to make the noise. I'm not saying they shouldn't work. I'm just saying they don't need a waiver. They need to keep the noise down, make sure that that's not happening. People need their weekends. Everyone works hard, and we'd like to enjoy some time that we can on our own. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Strasser, I've lived in Emery Bay Village 12 years, and only a row of redwood trees separates me from the field where the work is being done. So my bedroom looks out on the redwood trees, so needless to say, I'm right there. And I work during the week, Saturday and Sunday being the days that I have off. I would say what the lady just said with regard to not needing a noise waiver if only non-noisy interior finish trades are being done is accurate, and I don't mind if non-noisy interior finish trades are being worked on Saturday. I wouldn't even care if it was Sunday. However, on a case-by-case basis for a one-time noise waiver for exterior work, concrete pouring sounds quiet, but I would really request that the council not give any waivers that will be that loud that early in the morning. And I know when we were having painting done at recently at Emery Bay Village, on Saturdays, lots of times they didn't show up till like 11 or something, so it's not impossible for workers to do a half day or do a couple hours less, and I would request that at least on Saturdays that the workers not arrive until 11, even if it's a one-by-one case. Please don't have our mornings of our weekends ruined by noise waiver noise. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Susan Scott, and I'm at 5200 San Pablo Avenue at Gateway Commons. Our whole first row of units, like I think there's about 5 of us that work at home. My husband and I do. He works full-time at home, and I'm many times working at home. So we live there and we work there. There's also elderly people, there are sick people, and there's about 21 children who live there. So anyway, it sounds like, it's pretty obvious. Why would you need a noise waiver for what they're saying is not going to be noisy? So, just vote no on the waiver because we don't need it. That's all.
Thanks.
Hi, my name's Beth Calvat. I live at 4824 San Pablo in Gateway Commons, directly across the street from the ECCL site. And when I received the notice of the proposed waiver, I was obviously shocked and stunned. Completely opposed to it as the way it was written. So I heard the planning department's recommendation, which I really appreciate, but I'd like to make a couple of comments, and they're redundant to other comments that have been made. Number one, why grant a noise waiver if they're not going to make any noise? Because in my mind, that opens it up to making noise legal, right? So if there was a noise waiver based on the, on the precedent that there wasn't really going to be any noise, then they actually could make noise. So that would be disruptive. And then my second point is that, the noise ordinance is so important for a community. But it's also important for city council to be able to make exceptions to that. And I think that when you do make an exception, it should be based on facts and a really good reason. And in this case, I really don't feel like there is a reason. It's all like, well, if they need to work on weekends, maybe a year from now, and I just don't think that's a strong enough basis for you to be able to grant the waiver. So, there's a couple of things that the contractor or the school district rather could do. They could go back and reevaluate the schedule and look for points in the schedule when there may be activities that they may want to work on weekends, and then come back and ask for a specific waiver for that time. Or the other thing they could do is, usually in a construction project, there's an indication that the schedule is going to slip. And I'm not saying that they wait till the last minute, but they could wait until there's, a better indication that they would need to work on a weekend. So I would ask you to please vote no on the waiver. I also want to add one thing, is that in the last couple of weeks I've been looking at the websites a lot, and I noticed that there's not a lot of update on the ECCL. I think the USD has the ECCL site, and the last time it was updated was like 9 months ago, so somebody might want to work on that. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, my name's Mary Malik. I live on 53rd Street, right across from the construction. Right now, the noise, the backup beepers, the diesel engines starting before the stated hours of work. They do start their engines before. The backup beepers start immediately. The work might start on time. I'm not sure exactly, but the noise starts well before the time of work is supposed to start. I appreciate the fact that you've amended the noise waiver, but I also agree that if there's going to be non-noisy trades only being used, let's not do this. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ian Malik. I'm a resident on 53rd Street. I have been since 2002. To speak to the point about work starting before 7 a.m. during the weekdays, that's true. It frequently starts at 6:45. There are backup beepers. I do not believe that if this noise ordinance is passed, that they will start work at 9. I think that it will continue to start below or before that time. The high school had been a good neighbor over the last year. That's not the case. This is not the case. We are woken up early. We're woken up before 7. Our houses are dusty. It's just incredibly disrespectful to the neighborhood. Please, listen to the community.
Thank you.
My name's Monty Thompson. I live on San Pablo in Gateway Commons, right across the street from the project. Just want to add my voice to all the others. In the first place, waiver, I think, is the wrong word for this. A weekend or two might be a waiver. 18, 19 months is not a waiver. This is a suspension of the noise ordinance. And a noise ordinance is important to the quality of life. The project is already a big impact on our lives, so we can't even open our windows because of the dust, and I hazard to think what's in that dust. I guess that's about all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Roger Mills, and I've been a resident, I was a former resident of Emery Bay Village, but we still own a condo there and have for 10 years. And I would echo the sentiments of the speakers before me. I think there should be, the noise waiver should probably not be addressed in the sense of leave it in place, don't remove it. There's no need to remove noise that's not going to occur. If they say it's not going to occur, then there's no reason to have a noise waiver. So I would recommend that you not remove the noise waiver in any way. I'm glad to hear about the changes, by the way. They are very respectful to the people in the neighborhood. And the other thing I'd like to say is that I think it's fine if you need to approve Saturday work that's going to be non-noisy inside the building. However, if you do that, I hope not only for that, but during the weekdays, maybe the city could appoint some sort of monitor from the city who could go in occasionally in the mornings and see what's really going on and see if there is any noise. And I don't know what enforcement ability the city has in that case, but if there is noise, I hope the city will work to mitigate the situation and minimize the noise. I did live in Emery Bay Village for a number of years, and I think Emery Bay Village and 53rd Street and the people on San Pablo Avenue are bearing the brunt of any inconvenience for this project. And so I hope the city will continue to be respectful and be aware of the inconvenience this is causing the local residents there. So again, I do appreciate the changes, and I sure hope you won't eliminate the noise waiver, because when you eliminate those sorts of waivers, noise seems to occur all of a sudden. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Celeste Burrows. I live at Watergate, but I want to support the quality of life of my neighbors who live near the ECCL project. We all want the benefits of the center of community life, but we don't want it at the expense of those who are living near the project. If the noise is loud enough to require a waiver, then it's noise pollution. And noise pollution is a known health hazard. Damages not only hearing, but brains and hearts. One study near an airport found that even if people were sleeping, high levels of noise caused blood pressure spikes, increased pulse rates, and set off vasoconstriction and the release of stress hormones, and that these effects, the high blood pressure and the stress hormones, continued for many hours after the noise ended. And perhaps for these reasons, a different study found that workers working in noisy environments had 2 to 3 times the rate of heart problems compared to those working in quieter settings. 19 months is a long time to have these effects go on. The World Health Organization recently stated that noise pollution from such things as traffic caused more health damage than the air pollution from that traffic. And we all know that the air pollution from traffic is very damaging. And lastly, a study in a school found that the students whose classrooms were on the noisy side of the school facing an elevated train platform were grade level behind in their reading compared to students in quieter classrooms. So noise has really been called the most underappreciated health hazard of our times. In this particular case, I think it's the effect, well, as everyone has stated, the effect on thought, concentration, and overall peace of mind is probably the worst effect, because the noise permit that's being requested affects the Saturday time when people are home, relaxing and enjoying family time together. So I don't see how we can in good conscience tolerate having our neighbors be subject to this kind of noise damage for 19 months. So I ask you you reject the request for a waiver. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Judy Timmel. I'm here tonight representing Residents United for a Livable Emeryville. We did discuss this issue at our meeting, and we issued a statement of a vote of support for the neighbors, just to let you know that it's not only the people in the immediate area who are concerned about this issue, but all the residents, or many of us anyway. It seems like with this construction company, compliance is already an issue, and so I am very concerned about issuing them such a blanket waiver. And I agree with the person who suggested monitoring. I think that's really important. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really moved by all these people who live in Emeryville out here. I just want to say that it's interesting that Dr. John Rubio isn't here tonight. He was here the night that the deal was signed, and maybe I don't see him, and just my flavor, I have barely any experience with Emery Unified School District other than I went to 2 meetings recently and had some other interactions, but my general flavor is that it is very closed there and it's very non-transparent. And hearing the woman mention that the website hasn't been updated in 9 months, I just really feel the overtime is going to be jacked up if people are working on Saturday. The project's already a year behind. It does not feel right. It doesn't sound right, and I would vote definitely don't go ahead with this waiver.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, you're lucky. I can't hear. So I don't see any noise problem. But I want to stress something that is basic physics. The sound travels so far, but the intensity decreases with the distance. And so the further you are, the less you can hear it. And second, as the beeper, we're disconnecting the beeper, the backup beeper. I don't think it's in compliance with OSHA. I think OSHA wants to have a beeper. What I would suggest is that we change the pitch and the frequency of the beeper and make it sounds like a horn of a car, and that would be less irritating than a high pitch. That's my suggestion. And the second one is also that if we are going to disconnect the beeper, and we have to make it sure that the disconnection is not only temporary, but that is alternative. In other words, if you have lots of wind on the work side, there's no sense to disconnect the beeper because the sound is not going to travel very well. Depends if you are upwind or downwind. But you have to think about it, and it's just like an aircraft. You hear it coming, if it comes from the right way. If you don't, then you don't. You can be upset about the noise. But myself, I'm frustrating when I can't hear. Bye.
I believe you've already spoken.
One more time?
You have to take your entire time when you're up here. Is there someone else that wants to speak?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Hi.
Good evening, hi. My name is Della Grant. I live in Emeryville Village, and I would simply like to concur with the views of my neighbors and all of the others in close proximity to this project. And we all have a right to the expectation of quiet enjoyment. I work 5 days a week. I like the weekends because that gives me an opportunity to unwind. Can't do that if there is a lot of noise going on, and there is a lot of noise already. So I would ask that the council please consider the request of the community and not grant this waiver. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to be heard on this? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Council, comments?
I guess I'll start off. I just have a couple of comments. It's like, I have a problem with the specific length of this time requested. And I kind of have that because of, usually in California, you have delays caused by the weather. So I meant, if the school district would come forward in March or April and say that we've had a real wet season and it's, we're way, that'd be good news. And we're really behind on this construction, I would say that's a good reason for a waiver. But I don't see that, and I also concerned is anytime people work on overtime, they're being paid overtime, so it's going to cost the project some money too. But I also believe, going back to one thing, is that it's very important this project get built on time and with the money very well used in this project. So I would make a recommendation that if the school district needs something, to come back more specific to the type of work that needs to be done, very specific, and with more detail as far as why and the length of time required to do the work. So.
Other council members?
Yeah,
Nora.
I agree with you, Kurt. Actually, this is really an almost ridiculous request. It's like asking the city to write a blank check on the backs of the people that live close to that project. I'm appalled that you brought forward this request for such a lengthy period of time, because what that does is it encourages sloppy project management. It encourages not really paying attention to moving the project along. I agree with Kurt. If you have specific times and things that have to be done, come back at that time, but please don't come back here and ask for almost 2 years of variance. That's not within the realm of possibility as far as I'm concerned. And if you do come back, I think we have to be very careful, Charlie, to specify what kind of work is going to be done, because I see here that there was going to be no loud noise, but there was going to be structural steel allowed. That's not within the realm of possibility. Our citizens deserve to have their weekends free unless there's an extraordinary reason. I'll give you an example of what I'm thinking about. It's that concrete pour that we had over on Hollis Street, that when you're pouring concrete, you have to do it, and you have to do it within a period of time. That's not the case with this construction. We have not been given enough information about the project and the timing of the project, what your plans are for building, where you see the lacks, and you're asking us for a blank check. And I, for one, would not move ahead with this. If you come back on specific items, that's a different thing.
Yeah, I'd like to just concur, and I want to thank everybody who took the time and effort to contact us. I had a number of people who called and emailed. Even if you didn't speak this evening, being here speaks very loudly. So I think that's really important. We're excited about this project. I think this project is something that will be wonderful for our school district and for the citizens, but we can't make up time on your quiet weekends. I do want to ask Charlie or staff to respond. The purpose of a noise waiver. If you could explain, the construction is not allowed on the weekends without a noise waiver, whether it's noisy or not. Is that what I'm understanding? This is a work waiver? Is it just about decibel levels and noise?
If I may?
You can clarify. Yeah.
So the noise ordinance does not prohibit construction work on the weekends. What it does prohibit is general construction noise. So to the extent you're undertaking activities that are creating noise, that is prohibited on the weekend. So to the extent the council was looking at a revised resolution to limit it to non-noisy interior work, well, that's already allowed anyway under our code.
Okay.
I'd
so
like
that's a
to
good
I'd like to elaborate on that a bit. The noise ordinance, or the noise, construction noise, includes the noise of workers arriving and parking their cars and playing their radios and, you know, yelling across the site at each other and all that sort of thing. And to the extent that that kind of noise is occurring on Saturdays, even if the work itself is inside and not heard from outside, that's still not allowed. So what we've advised people when they want to do interior work is that's fine as long as you're real quiet and the neighbors don't even know you're there. If they can't tell that you're there, then you don't need a noise waiver.
So the complaints that we have in a condition of approval of a noise waiver like this, where there's a name and a number and someone answers the phone, is that in place even if they don't have a noise waiver? If they're working on a Saturday so quietly no one knows, but that someone hears something and complains, can you
Well, actually, no, not really. But although we do have as a standard condition of approval on all projects that there be a sign indicating the approved work hours, which normally is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and a telephone number for concerns or complaints. So a person can call that number if they hear noise on Saturday they don't think should be there.
So I would encourage citizens to do so. If you're disturbed by noise, I know we've had construction recently in my neighborhood, and a number of my neighbors went out and talked directly to the workers, but there is recourse, and you can call the folks who are in charge of that project.
In fact, that often is the complaint we get, is people are doing work on weekends and they don't have a noise waiver, and they're not doing quiet work. They're out there doing noisy work. Well, that's what that sign is there for. It's so that people can call if people are working outside the approved work hours.
So would a citizen call that number, but also call perhaps the non-emergency police number to report this work?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to also say that we've heard that it sounds like the work hours have not been complied with at this time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's anecdotal. I don't know that for fact, but it's true. They're not supposed to be making any noise before 7 a.m., any kind of noise.
So how do we monitor that, and how is it complaint-driven?
Complaint-driven. This project is a little bit unusual because the city of Emeryville did not issue the building permit for this project. Being a school project, the permits have been issued by the state division of the state architect. Normally, we would have an inspector on the site, or inspector assigned to the project, who usually has a pretty good working relationship with the general contractor. And when we get complaints, we just tell the inspector to go out and talk to the contractor and tell them to knock it off. In this case, we do have Mr. Baker as the contact person for the school district, and when I get a complaint, I refer them to him, and he should be able to resolve it.
We've heard several complaints from our residents about the dust, and who is supervising and making sure that these people are keeping that construction dampened down so you don't have the dust? The same thing, you have to go through the state architect?
Well, Mr. Baker, as I said, is the school district's project manager, so he would be the one.
Well, I think I would urge the council on behalf of our residents, not only Emeryville residents, but the Oakland residents, that we communicate with the school district and ask that some supervision be given to seeing that site's dampened down. I know we're in a water shortage, but that dust going to everybody's houses, that's not right. So
I'm sure that's a standard
condition. You probably
condition.
have to make a formal complaint on this.
I'm sure that's a standard condition, but that doesn't mean they're doing it, but it is part of the conditions.
Right, we'll have staff follow up with the district on that. Ruth, do you have anything to offer?
The only fresh comments, rather than being redundant about what other people have said already, is there will be noise even for the interior work, delivery of sheetrock, and the backup beepers will need to be disconnected with the appropriate people with flags to direct and for safety and all of that. The issue of the concrete pour that Councilmember Davis spoke about another project, that was requested for a Saturday, and I had a lot of misgivings about that because particularly in that neighborhood, the ambient noise really dies down a lot over the weekends, and a lot of, but they prevailed in terms of having all this army of concrete trucks standing at the ready to pour their contents and keep pouring, and I've learned some about the technical nature of not letting partial pours dry a little bit and needing to continue to have that happen. I'm going to have a hard time if and when a waiver comes for a Saturday concrete pour, based on the idea that it'll be easier and less disruptive to the traffic, because we're talking about a state highway, and we can do traffic counts right now, we can do traffic counts closer to that thing, but I don't think we see a great reduction in the number of vehicles traveling on San Pablo Avenue in the same way that we do on Hollis on the weekends. The Hollis corridor really does quiet down on the weekends. So I think Turner and construction's going to have to figure out how to have all of the concrete trucks lined up and ready to do this on a weekday. It'll be easier to go get more if they run short and all that. So I'm signaling ahead of time that if a waiver comes for a Saturday concrete pour, I'm not going to look very kindly on that, because I don't think those conditions are the same on San Pablo as they were with the people who requested it for Hollis. So I also want to thank people for emailing us, contacting us, coming out tonight, and as you can see, the council is unanimous in wanting to preserve some quality of life during a construction period. So I'm not sure what else.
Mayor Asher, I'd move to deny the noise waiver.
Yeah, I have just one
Take a
comment.
formal action on it and
Okay,
deny it.
I just have one comment. I too, obviously, think it's too broad, right? People, in addition to being able to enjoy their peace and quiet on the weekend, also deserve some predictability. And having a noise waiver for over a year doesn't allow people to know when these activities are going to happen. And so the way I prefer to handle it is when something is going to happen, everyone is noticed, and it comes before us.
Right.
And I think that's the best way to both provide some predictability and also to have a feedback loop in case people start work early, right? In case it's disruptive. So make it more narrow, make it more specific the next time that it comes to us. I too want to thank everyone for the emails and the phone calls. I've been sharing those with staff and thinking about what Nora has said in terms of the dust and the other complaints that we've had. Some of those complaints were noted in those contacts, and I'll just ask staff to go ahead and share those, pass those along to the school district so that they're aware of them as well. So my vote is also a no on this.
Is that a second?
Yeah, I seconded the
There was a
motion.
second from Jennifer.
And I just want to let you know that Dan Kalb, your city council member, also contacted us. So it was very thorough and appropriately so.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Do we taking a vote or?
Yeah, do we need a roll call vote?
Oh,
It's a public hearing.
okay. Do we, Mike, need a roll call vote?
You know, unless anybody's objecting, I don't hear.
No.
No.
It's
I don't think
unanimous.
so. It's unanimous. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay. Item 8.1.
You guys don't have to leave. Another hour or so.
You don't want to stay for other
Toward the end.
The fun's just starting, trust me.
come back another time, okay?